Chapter 17. Crimson Eyes. The three ninja looked at the two Akatsuki members, Itachi Uchiha, the one that Naruto and Tayayu were going to fight. Konan was going to fight Gaara. Though her powers were unknown, they were confident in Gaara abilities. Itachi looked at Naruto, glaring at the Sharingan user. Tayayu was staring at the Uchiha rogue as well through her Kyuubi chakra-enhanced eyes from Naruto. Tayayu looked at Naruto, who seemed extremely serious, but on the other hand Tayayu was excited. Finally, after all this time she was going to see Naruto at the best of his abilities. Itachi seemed to have made it known that he was going to target Tayayu as the weaker of the two. Naruto had already said that he wasn't going to let Itachi hurt her, but he can't do everything. Tayayu wasn't worried though. She was confident in her abilities, though she didn't know if it was on the level of Itachi. Naruto looked over at Tayayu. He had a plan, but he didn't have the time to discuss the plan with her. The blonde-haired shinobi sighed at this and then looked over at Itachi. He was just standing there for some reason. Naruto looked over at Tayayu again, then over at Gaara, who already had his sand on the ground around him as Konan had paper flying around her. Gaara was staring at the Akatsuki woman with his usual emotionless and monotone expression. Gaara was sending sand at her, surrounding her, and as it closed in on her she transformed into pieces of paper and transported outside of the attack. Naruto saw that Gaara appeared to be doing fine for the moment, and then he flashed at Itachi, pulling out his katana as he charged. Itachi smirked. "Foolish of you, Nine Tails, to just attack me like that. You should have thought out your actions better, come being captured like the fool that you are." Naruto leapt into the air and started to channel his wind chakra into his blade and slashed down at Itachi, sending a slash of wind fly through the air at Itachi. Itachi did hand signs as he moved to the side, fire style, fireball jutsu. Itachi blew out a large fireball directed at Naruto, who disappeared and reappeared next to Tayayu. Naruto looked at her, then whispered into her ear. He covered his mouth that way Itachi couldn't pick up what he was saying, utilizing his Sharingan to read his lips. Tayayu looked at Naruto and nodded her head at him as Naruto did the shadow clone jutsu. There were 5 clones next to Naruto, all looking directly at Itachi. Naruto had the clones charge at the rogue Sharingan user, and Naruto looked at Tayayu. "Are you ready, Tayayu-chan?" Tayayu nodded her head at him as he put his hand on her hips, channeling some more of his Kyuubi chakra into her. Tayayu resisted the urge to release a moan from the sensation of Naruto channeling Kyuubi chakra into her. "When we are finished with this, I am going to definitely make him fucking utilize this in bed." Tayayu looked at Naruto, who nodded his head, then she let out a low whistling sound that was directed towards Itachi. The Genjutsu master froze in his tracks, unable to make his body move as the clones stopped near him as well. Naruto did another hand sign from behind Tayayu, Shadow Clone Bombs Jutsu. The clones all exploded where they stood in paralysis from Tayuyu's Genjutsu attack, a technique she called Siren's Song. Itachi wasn't killed but was injured by the attack combination from the two Konohagakure shinobi. They hadn't let the clones get close enough before they used Tayuyu's Genjutsu attack, a mistake, but it was their first time trying to combine the two attacks. Tayayu stopped whistling and Itachi was released from the paralysis. Itachi looked over at the red-headed kunoichi that was standing next to Naruto. "What an interesting technique you have there. Are you a Genjutsu specialist as well?" Tayayu stared at the Sharingan user and nodded her head a little, still staying on the defensive to not get the Akatsuki member any kind of opening. Itachi smirked as he looked at her. "You have a lot of promise as a Genjutsu user. If you live, which I don't intend to let you do, and keep working on it, then you could become someone that could be feared for her Genjutsu abilities." Tayayu looked at him. "You won't be killing anyone. I am going to kill you though, you little bastard." Itachi smirked at her. Her dedication to Naruto was comical to him. "Why are you willing to die for a Jinchuriki? You ought to know that it will end badly in the end." Tayayu growled a little. "Because he is mine. Only mine. No one else can have the shithead because he is all mine." Naruto looked at her. "Wow. That was extremely possessive. I think that is a good thing though. It means that she really cares about me, right? I can always ask her about it later. Hopefully she won't hit me when I ask though." Naruto smiled as he looked at her for a moment, then back at Itachi, who was looking straight into her crimson eyes. "So you are deeply involved with the Kyuubi host. I thought you were maybe just starting out from his kiss, but by your reaction and tone it sounds like you two have been together for a while." Naruto scratched the back of his head. Couple of months. Though according to Tayuya-chan we acted like a couple a lot longer than that. Tayuya continued to glare at the S-ranked criminal Uchiha member. I am deeply involved with him, bitch. What are you going to do about it? He is my boyfriend and I have strong feelings for him. And that being said, I will never let any of you cloaked bastards take him from me. Naruto looked at her and leaned down by her, whispering into her ear, I love you too, Tayuya-chan, just so you know. Tayuya's face turned red as she looked at Naruto, then back at Itachi. Now, I am going to finish this with my new technique. Naruto rose his eyebrow at her. New technique. Tayuya smirked. I can't show you every ace that I have in case you are ever bad. Now I need a Kyuubi boost. Naruto nodded as he put his hands on her as he transferred some of his Kyuubi chakra into her again. She tried to suppress the moan, but this time she couldn't and let it out a little bit, making Naruto smile. Tayuya looked at Itachi, her crimson eyes glowing brightly, then she flashed in his general direction. When she was about 25 yards from him, she leapt up into the air, raining down shuriken with ninja wire attached to it. Tayuya landed on a large building, throwing the kunai into the roof that had the other ends of the ninja wires on it. She looked at the wires. I was afraid I wouldn't have enough chakra to do this jutsu yet, but with Naruto-kun's Kyuubi chakra boost I should be able to do it just fine. Tayuya smirked as she started to channel the chakra into her fingers and started to touch the wires. Making the sound, vibrations channeled down the wires and then hit the ground by Itachi, who was looking at the wires. What are you planning? Tayuya started to play the wires quicker. That was when Itachi noticed that his vision was starting to blur, slowly going black around the edges. Itachi shook his head, trying to shake off the effect of her technique. Itachi stumbled a little as he looked over at Konan. Konan, cut the ninja wires. Konan looked at him, then was hit by a bit of sand as Gaara spoke up. You are fighting me, Akatsuki member. Pay attention to your rightful enemy. Gaara had his sand fly up into the air at her, crashing into her on all sides. She tried to transport herself with her paper technique, but unfortunately for her, she was a bit too late initializing it. Only part of her body got away unscratched, her right arm suffering a good amount of damage from Gaara's sand. Konan groaned in pain as she looked at the one-tailed Jinchuriki. Damn it, I thought he was weaker than this. Gaara shook his head. You shouldn't underestimate an opponent. That was something that I learned a long time ago from my blonde Jinchuriki friend over here. When you underestimate your opponent, it will lead to your inevitable downfall. Konan looked over at Naruto, who was standing between her and Tayuya's technique as she continued to play the ninja wires. Itachi had covered his ears, trying to soften the effects of her technique. Unfortunately though, she had already done the initial damage, and now her technique just prolonged and worsened the effects as long as some of the sound was heard. Tayuya smirked. Then she felt herself feeling weak. Her eyes started to feel like they were in pain, and she quickly realized what was going on. Naruto noticed Itachi starting to regain his composure and looked up at Tayuya, who was holding her head while her body swayed. Suddenly, she fell. Naruto ran up the side of the building, then leapt off, catching her in his arms as he soared back to the ground. Tayuya's eyes slowly opened to show that they were brown again. Naruto-kun. Naruto smiled at her, his eyes still crimson as he gazed at her softly. You used up all the Kyuubi chakra I gave you, then depleted too much of your own too quickly. Stay here while I finish off the weakened Itachi and keep your eyes closed. Tayuya nodded her head as she closed her eyes, not because he said to, but because she was tired. She was actually tempted to try and stay awake since he told her to close her eyes, even though she knew he was saying it to keep her safe. Naruto stood and turned back towards Itachi, was shaking his head, still trying to shake off the effects of the interesting technique that Tayuya had used on him. Naruto charged at him with his katana out and at the ready. He went for the slash and finishing blow, but it was blocked by a taped-up object. Naruto looked to his side and leapt back to see another cloaked Akatsuki member now standing there. He removed his straw hat to show that he was Kisame, making Naruto groan. He didn't need more of them showing up. Kisame looked at the injured Konan and disoriented Itachi. Leader has requested that you both return to the base. Apparently, his faith in you both has been shaken since you are having such a hard time with the one tail and the 9 tails. Itachi looked over at Naruto. We will see how much you have grown soon, Naruto. Your girlfriend's technique is quite interesting. Tell her that I will be seeing her again soon, I am sure. Next time the results will be different though. Itachi disappeared in a swirl of crows as Conan disappeared in a swirl of paper. Kisame looked at Naruto and Gaara as they stared at him. To Jinchuriki. I think that I would rather pick you both off when you least expect it. Kisame disappeared in a swirl of water, leaving the three shinobi there alone. Naruto looked back at Tayayu who was sleeping, making Naruto smile. Gaara looked at Naruto. You two can spend the rest of the time I requested her enjoying yourselves, or you can go back to Konohagakure. I will let you both decide. Naruto nodded. Thank you for your offer, Gaara. I will let Tayayu-chan decide when she wakes up. I am sure she is tired from the battle. Gaara nodded his head as he looked at her. True, but she definitely was impressive in the battle. That last technique was something that I have never seen before. Her whistling attack was something rare as well. Naruto nodded his head as he walked over to Tayayu and picked her up. She truly is amazing, that is for sure. I am sure I will see you soon, Gaara. I will make sure to let you know our decision and I will say goodbye before we leave. Gaara nodded his head as he disappeared in a swirl of sand, leaving the blonde-haired Konohagakure shinobi there alone to hold his red-headed girlfriend. Naruto looked down at the resting Kunoichi in his arms and smiled. You did great tonight, Tayayu-chan. I will make sure to tell you that when you wake up. Naruto carried her through the streets into their hotel. They went up the stairs into their room before Naruto gently placed her on the bed in the one bedroom that their hotel room possessed. Naruto smiled as she laid there with a smile on her face. Naruto leaned down and kissed her on the forehead. Sleep well, Tayayu-chan. Naruto went to the couch in the other room and laid down, quickly falling asleep as well after sharing so much of his Kyuubi chakra with Tayayu. The next morning, Tayayu was surprisingly the first one awake. She noticed that she was in the bedroom of their hotel room, but her blonde-haired boyfriend wasn't next to her. She sighed. The dumb ass could have slept by me. It would have happened that way if we had made love. Tayayu stood up from the bed and stretched, still a little tired from the battle that they had endured the night before. She walked out of the room to find Naruto asleep on the couch still, his feet handing over the edge since he was larger than the couch. Tayayu looked at him and smiled. He looks so childish like that. Tayayu walked over and laid down with him, wrapping her arms around his waist as she cuddled into him. Naruto was roused from his sleep by this and looked down at her. Tayayu-chan. Am I still dreaming? Tayayu looked at him. No, you're not dreaming, Naruto-kun. Why did you sleep on the couch though, idiot? Naruto looked at her. Well, I didn't know if you would want me in there as well. Did you want me in there because of how possessive you were of me, Tayayu-chan? Tayayu blushed a little bit. I am allowed to be possessive of you. Naruto looked at her. So, am I allowed to be possessive of you as well, or is it one of those things only you're allowed to do again? Tayayu smiled at him. You can be possessive of me as well, shithead-kun. It just means you care for me so much you don't want anyone else near me that you view as a threat in our relationship. That is how I view it, at least. Naruto looked at her. So that is why you are possessive around Sakura and Akatsuki then? Tayayu nodded her head at him. Sakura is a skank and a corner hoe who just wants to fuck you, and Akatsuki wants to kill you. Both want to ruin our relationship, do you understand? Naruto nodded his head at her, then gave a small smile. Do you want to stay here for the rest of the days we were asked, or go home? Gaara said we could do either. Tayayu looked at him. What do you want to do? Naruto thought about it for a minute. I want to stay here. I like how you act with me here. Tayayu smiled. Then we can stay here. Naruto nodded and kissed her quickly, surprising her a little bit, but she didn't complain. Naruto smiled some more. Would you mind if we go back to sleep? I am a bit tired still, Tayayu-chan. Tayayu shook her head. You read my mind, blonde, come on. Tayayu grabbed his hand and pulled him into the bedroom and laid down with him in the bed, both going back to sleep for a couple more hours. To be continued.